So before we get to the sermon, I just want to mention that 21 years ago, in about 8 minutes, the second tower was falling. I'd like to just pause for a minute. Lord Jesus, the powers of hatred are real and threatening in this world. And we ask, Lord, that your spirit of gentleness would blow across the entire world. That no matter what others believe, what faith they espouse, that you would fill in their hearts with something other than the hatred that has so fired the imagination and cost the lives of literally millions over the years. We pray for those who remember now, who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. And we ask, Lord, that you would build us up in the same way, that we not succumb to that same hatred that created that day. In your name we pray. Amen. So I also want to say thanks to Chris and Dave. Chris and I, it's no secret, we don't always agree with everything, right? No, but you know, the other part about that is we always walked away friends. At least I think we did. Yep, we did. Yep, good. She's acknowledging that. That's good. We always walked away friends. And Chris's patience with understanding that things needed to change in order to reach those outside the door was absolutely astounding. And I'm speaking to you not only as a sister in Christ, but also as a fellow leader of this church, and we deeply appreciate it. One other thing, it's only an hour drive from Mason. Come and see us, okay? We'll do that. That was a scene from a 1984 movie called Amadeus, and fabulous movie. Have any of you seen this movie? A few are raising their hands. That's good. It's based loosely on an urban Viennese legend that Mozart, his early death, he died when he was 38 years old, was the result of Salieri poisoning him. And this went on for years, and in fact, at the end of his life, Salieri, he kind of denied that was not the case. It's been evidently been proven that it wasn't. So it's kind of an urban legend. But the movie is absolutely fabulous. So Salieri, Antonio Salieri, a little bit about him, because there's not a lot to know about him, because he sort of fell, up until this movie, fell back into obscurity. He rose up out of very humble beginnings and chose to become a musician. And he did everything right. He played by the numbers. And he had risen to such heights in the musical world. So now here he is in Vienna, and he's not just a musician and a composer in Vienna, but he has become the court composer to Emperor Joseph. And he's written 40 operas. And what's more is he's not just the court composer, but he is wildly popular, and his music is wildly popular in the day. So along comes Mozart, who is 6 years his younger. You can't make this up when you think about the story that Shelley just read. 6 years his younger, and Mozart is the polar opposite in terms of the way he lived his life, from Salieri. Salieri is righteous beyond words. He did, as I said, he did everything by the numbers. Mozart was an impetuous, smutty, childish man who succumbed to every kind of excess possible. He was always in money trouble. He died penniless. And if this story is true, he was buried in a mass grave. I don't know if that's true or not. I do know that there is a grave for Mozart in Vienna, which I didn't get to visit when I was there, but I don't know if that's actually where he was buried, if they dug him up and put him in that place. But he had nothing when he was done. Absolutely nothing. And of course, Salieri, this perfect guy who's righteous and does everything correctly, he sees what Mozart is, but he also sees what Mozart is doing with his music. And this is not just any music. This is the music of heaven. It is, Salieri says, it is as if the very voice of God is speaking. And it's unrestrained joy, and it's the deepest, most profound longing that gets expressed, and everything in between that gets expressed. And Salieri is jealous because here he is, this righteous person who's always done things the right way, and he's talking to God, and God bypasses him for this smutty child. And he uses this smutty child as the instrument of his music to create these beautiful things and to have this gift. And Salieri is sitting there wondering why he doesn't even get the smallest portion of that gift. Even the smallest portion. He can see the absolute beauty, but he can't create it himself. And thus the resentment. Something else that I know is true about Salieri, I just did a little reading and found a historian last night to confirm this. It's also true that that was a burr in his saddle for the rest of his life, that Mozart had these gifts and he did not. In fact, as Mozart's music increases during and then after his death, Salieri's music decreases until by the end of his life, almost no one has heard his music, and he's gone from this wildly popular composer in the center of the capital of classical music to someone who is barely recognizable. And in fact, this historian I read last night, he said, in all the years of going to concerts, I have seen one Salieri opera. He wrote 40 of them. And so he's insanely jealous, and that jealousy continues throughout his life. He tries to commit suicide. It doesn't work. And towards the end of his life, he has these conversations with a friend about Mozart and the fact that he says he didn't kill him, but it's burning within him. There's another scene in this movie where they're working together on this piece. It's the Requiem, and there's a translation. He says, Mozart says, "How do you translate that?" He says, "Consigned to the fires of hell." And Mozart said, "Do you believe that?" Do you believe what? Salieri says. He says, "A fire that never stops burning, that completely consumes you forever." And Salieri says, "Oh, yes," because he knows what that fire is. For him, it's that resentment, that desire to be what Mozart is. And here he is, the righteous one. And there is no justice in the world because he's the one who should have that gift. But instead, it's given to someone who is wayward. Okay, that's enough of that for right now. Let's stop and sing. So the story that Shelley just read, it's just a little background. It's the third of three stories that Jesus tells, and they're recorded in Luke chapter 15. And the setting is that Jesus has been eating with tax collectors and sinners, associating with them, and the Pharisees and the scribes are grumbling because he's eating with sinners. Okay, they're righteously speaking, Jesus shouldn't be there. Okay, and so that's the start of all of this. And so we get to the parable, and I will tell you that this is a very famous parable, right? Everybody knows it, and so do the commentators. And I could take this in any one of a million directions with what the commentators have to say, but I think what I'd like to do instead is try to narrow it down. The sermon's going to be long enough the way it is. I'm sorry. And just make two observations. The first observation is this. When it comes to the road of redemption, there is no such thing as a wasted time. Okay? So I want you to think about the prodigal, the son who's the prodigal, the younger son. And by the way, that word prodigal, a little aside here. When we hear that word, we think of it as being wasteful, that you just throw things away willy-nilly, right? But it comes from a root word that means not only that, but it also means lavish and extravagant. Okay, and you can see how the two are connected, right? Wasteful, just throwing things out. Being lavish, just throwing things out and with good intent, right? But for now, we've got this son, this younger son, who is wasteful, and he asks for half the inheritance, and then he goes out and he spends it all, right? And now what I want to do is focus on that time between when he asks for the inheritance and the time when he comes to his senses and decides to return home. Because, by all appearances, that's wasted time, right? He spends all of his money. He gathers up all these friends who are fickle. He gets to the point where he has no one to turn to, so he hires himself out to slaughter pigs. And he is so hungry that he looks at the pig slop and he said, I could eat this. It's better than what I'm getting when I feed myself. And that looks like wasted time, doesn't it? It looks like a waste of resources. Half the inheritance is gone. But here's the thing. Had the younger son not gone through all of that, he would never, ever get to the point of saying, I want to go home. I need to go home. Everything that happens takes him down into an awful valley, and things are just tossed away. He's tossed away his relationship with his dad, with his brother. He's tossed away all of the inheritance. He's in this foreign country, and he knows no one there. He's tossed it all away. And it took getting down to that level, scraping rock bottom. It took that to teach him that what he has with his father is the most valuable thing he could possibly find. Right? So, there is no such thing as wasted time when it comes to the road of redemption. In the late 18th century, there was a man by the name of John Newton. And John Newton lived a checkered life, and part of it wasn't his fault. His mom died when he was 6 years old, but he was always rebellious. He joined the Royal Navy in England, and then I don't think he got kicked out, but he tried to desert. Well, you can imagine what that does. And then he started working as a slave trader. And he was hard on his cargo, and he was hard on his crew. And from what I can tell, that being hard on the crew abandoned him in West Africa. Okay, so he's out there, and finally what he has to do in order to make a living is he has to work for another slave trader as the slave trader's servant. And so he's on his way back. He's released from all of that. He's on his way back. He's on a ship back to England, and a storm hits. And the storm is such that it almost sinks the ship. And this is the beginning of John's redemption. That and the sickness that he had on another ship. And I will tell you that had John Newton not gone through all of that, not abandoned and was abandoned and not tried to desert and been an awful slave trader, done awful things to decent people. Had he not done all of that, he would never have given up his probably very profitable life as a slave trader. And had John Newton not done all of those things and scraped the bottom like that, he would never have become an Anglican priest. And if John Newton hadn't done all of those things and scraped rock bottom, he would never have written these words. Sing them with me if you know. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, and now am found, was blind, but now I see. When it comes to the road to redemption, there is no such thing as wasted time. So there's a second observation that I'd like to make. And this observation comes in the form of a question, okay? Is it possible to be both righteous and lost? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, consider the story that we just read, that Shelley just read. The story of the older son. And he's never left his father once. All of his life he's worked for him almost as a slave. He's slaved for him. He's never disobeyed his father even on a single time. He's done everything. He's played by the numbers. He's just like Salieri. He's done everything right the way it's supposed to be. But then we find out what's really going on in the son's head. Because he goes to his dad, actually, he doesn't go to his dad. His dad comes out to him. That's another, a million ways to go with this sermon. His dad comes out to him, and the son says, I've done all of these things. I've been faithful. I played by the numbers. I've done everything right, and you've never even given me a young goat to celebrate with my friends, let alone killing the fatted calf. And yet this son of yours, another way to go in the sermon, it's not his son, it's not his brother, it's this son of yours. He's already disowned him, it's keeping it that way. When he comes home after wasting half of your inheritance and wasting all of that money and wasting all of that time and turning his life into a waste, when he comes back, you include him back as part of the family. What's going on here? There's nothing righteous about this. There's nothing just about this. There's nothing fair about this. Sounds, again, just like Salieri, doesn't it? So, is it possible to be righteous and at the same time lost? I think so. I think it was true for Salieri. I think it's true for the older son in the story. And I have a suspicion that it might be true for some of us. I was reading, and I ran across this from one of my favorite preaching authors. His name is David Lose. And he wrote these things. And it's just sort of a laundry list of how people are righteous, doing the right thing. They even had the best of intents, but along the way they're lost. So listen. Might the parent who wants their children to succeed so much that they wrap their whole lives around hockey games and dance recitals be lost? Might the career-minded man or woman who has made moving up the ladder the one and only priority, could they possibly be lost? And what about the folks who work jobs they hate just to give their family things they never had? Is it possible that they're lost? Might the senior who has a great pension plan but little sense of meaning since his retirement, is it possible that that person is lost? And what about the teen who works so hard to be perfect and is willing to do just about anything to be fit? Is he lost maybe? And might the earnest Christian who is constantly asking whether people have accepted Jesus into their hearts, might that person be lost? The list can go on and on and on. And maybe you can fill in the blanks with some of the ways that secretly, deep down inside, you have been lost as well. And you know, as I mentioned on Wednesday night, and by the way, doing the same lesson on Wednesday as we are on Sunday, and this week I'm going to start after church for the next lesson. If you want to join me for Bible study, you're welcome to do that. I won't miss all of your coffee, Chris and Dave, I promise. They both got the same issue, don't they? I mean, one is wasting time, has gone far away from home. The other has stayed home righteously, faithfully, with the best of intentions. But they both have one thing in common, don't they? Let's sing. I want to introduce you to one more word that you know or you think you know very well. So we've got prodigal, right? Which can mean either a waste or an extravagant giving, a releasing, right? Lavish. The other word is a word that we tend to shy away from here in church, but I don't think we should. That word is discipline. Right? Now I'm guessing, if you're like me, that word conjures up images of being put in the corner, going to bed without your supper, and being admonished for doing the wrong thing. Isn't that right? Isn't that kind of how you think about discipline? You're going to be fixed. You're going to be punished. That's the word I was looking for, punished. Okay? Because of something you did or something you didn't do. But that isn't what the word really means. It's taken on that because all we think about is the punishment, but we don't think about what's really supposed to be happening. And I wish it happened in every case, but it doesn't. The word discipline means to teach, to instruct, to impart knowledge. There's another word that's based on the same root word. Do you know what it is? Disciple. Same word. Carries the same meaning. And so the older brother, he's sort of stuck in that meaning, that common meaning that we all know and love, go to bed without your supper, being punished, being admonished, all those sorts. He's stuck in that, and especially when it comes to his younger brother, or that son of his. He's stuck in that, so much so that when the son comes back crawling on his knees, he's wishing that his father, instead of throwing a party for him, would send him to bed without his supper, right? And then have him get up in the morning, pack his bags, and get out of here because you don't belong. You have disowned us, and you have dishonored half of a life's worth of work by squandering that inheritance. That's what the older son wants. He wants discipline. He wants punishment. But you see, that isn't what discipline is. Discipline is to teach. And for the younger son, that wasted time and all of that wasted wealth and getting to rock bottom to discover that it wasn't wasted time at all, that was his discipline, his teaching moment. And what the father knew he needed to do when that son comes up over the rise and he sees him at a far distance, what the father knew he needed to do was to run out to his son and embrace him and put a robe on him and put the family ring on his finger and tell the servants, we're going to kill the fatted calf. We're having a party tonight. I mean, the son has this whole speech lined up about how he's not worthy. He just wants to come back and be a servant if dad will let him, and the father doesn't even let him finish the speech. Why does he do that? Why doesn't he punish him? Because he's been through the punishment already. And now he doesn't feel worthy to be a part of the family. Now remember who Jesus is talking to in this parable. He's talking to sinners and tax collectors because he eats with them. No doubt they're right there. He's also talking to Pharisees and scribes. Right? Isn't that interesting? And those sinners and tax collectors, they don't need someone to punish them. That's already happening. It was happening in the church. This is the church gone bad, right? And it was happening then, and it still happens today, where people don't feel welcome because they've led this checkered life, or maybe they've just fallen off the church thing, or maybe they don't feel welcomed. Right? And so they walk in the door for the first time, and we all want to say, well, fancy meeting you here. Gee, I can't believe that there's still one brick on top of the other. You're here, and that just sends them right back out the door. And the father does this because he knows that the teaching has already happened. But then he turns to the older son, who is righteous but lost, but doesn't really know he's lost. His righteousness has turned into self-righteousness, right? Because, he's done everything right, and this guy hasn't, right? And he instructs his son about the way things really are. In the hope, because the older son's on a journey too, right? And hopefully it will become a journey of redemption. We don't know for sure because Jesus ends the story with the son still outside. Does he go in? Does he stomp away? We don't know. But what the father is doing is he's instructing him in the hopes that his journey will become a journey of redemption. Because you see, in the end, it's really not about being sinner or righteous, about being bad or good with good intentions. At the center of this story is a father who is deeply, passionately, wildly in love with his children. And he knows exactly what they need. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to tell a story about Vince Lombardi, Green Bay Packers. And by the way, the Vikes will win today. But it's been said that Vince Lombardi, he treated all of his players very differently. If he knew he had somebody with that was kind of tender, he would put a shoulder around them and help them understand what he wants them to do. But then there were other players that needed a kick in the pants, and he did that. Right? And so why are you being nice to this guy and kicking me in the pants? Well, I need to get through to both of you. I need you to understand that this is a journey to redemption. And that the arm and the shoulder is his journey to redemption. The kick in the pants is your journey to redemption. It's not discipline. It's not punishment. It's teaching that calls you back home. And so maybe some of you here or some of you are online or watching and you've always been on the edges or always felt like you've been on the edges. My prayer is that journey will become a journey of redemption for you. And for those of you with the best of intentions and are righteous in every way, I pray that these words today will turn your journey of righteousness into a path of redemption for you as well. Amen.